roll call, please.
Trustee Christensen.
Here.
Cunningham.
Here.
Whitwer.
Here.
Reinig.
Here.
Hollenbeck.
Here.
Kumbier. McNeely.
Here. Okay, can we stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with us? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proof of posting.
The agenda was posted in the upper and lower levels of the Amundsen Community Center at the Hometown Bank, the post office, and the village website.
Okay. All right. Public appearances. I see two gentlemen here. You both just like to...
Fans.
Hang out with you guys.
They're just fans.
And
that's
we
all.
enjoy your company.
Okay. I thank you for being here and taking it all in.
Bonus.
All right. Approval of the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for this.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion necessary? Okay.
There was a couple of typos, but I might be in the wrong area. Never mind.
What were there any substantial ones? or
No,
just little-
the
okay.
dates.
Okay.
All right.
Instead of 2020, it was 2009 or something.
Okay.
All right. We've got a motion and a second. All those in approval of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right. Moving.
So can I just make a note that that consent agenda included the park reservation for the Grace Lutheran Church, October 13th, Veterans Park, Blessing of the Animals. I just wanted to make sure people know that's happening.
You know, actually, I did. What is Blessing of the Animals? I saw that.
The area churches, well, you can bring your animals
Bring your
to the
pets
park
and have them blessed.
Have them blessed.
Yep. it's
Exactly
really
what it
cool.
sounds like.
So you bring Fido or
Yes.
Buffy or whatever.
Hand out registration papers,
Okay.
right?
I'd be just
There
curious.
to hand out the registration papers to people that have animals.
Oh.
Especially
The
people with
license.
kids. Yeah, make sure you license your kids.
Yeah, since we have three of them that are licensed and probably a lot more showing up.
My-
And they're all hers.
At my mom's, they actually bring their
Get all
head.
the unlicensed kids.
It's a sting.
It's a blessing. Come on.
At the one up at my mom's, they bring hedgehog. Somebody brought a hedgehog and a guinea pig the last time. Yeah, so
They can bring
all
cows
their
or
animals.
horses.
Yep.
They-
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Alyssa's bringing her bearded dragon.
All right. Okay, we're going to, with that, we're going to move on to reports. I have three items that I just want to talk about very quickly. September 26th, I and one of the other trustees went out to see the town of Christiana, and they had the solar panels and just a presentation. Chris, when you and I were there, we were led to believe that it was just, we thought there'd be a presentation, and there wasn't at that time. And so while we were there, it was just pretty much talking with people. There wasn't anything formal. So we left. They did meet. They talked for about 20 minutes, but we weren't there when that happened. But we were out there at the meeting. Am I missing anything significant?
No, the consensus of folks that showed up there thought it was going to be a presentation of sorts where the company would come in, but they let us know early on that they were going to put up some billboards, there was some mapping, there was an example of the solar panel that was there, but in fact they did not have any kind of presentation. What they did do is said if anybody had any questions, they could field as many questions as possible, but without a presentation, I didn't feel like we needed to stick around.
Yeah.
Got all the information we needed and moved on.
All right. Okay, another meeting that I attended was the it had to deal with the connector trail, and specifically the village, or the county of Jefferson. I went to this, and I was there with Bob Saloff. Now, we're going to have a presentation in 2 weeks from Mr. Saloff and Mr. Struss, who are also on that committee, and I've asked them, and I think they're going to be here. But this meeting with Jefferson County was to get them to release $5,000 that they've already pledged to do so, to ensure that we've got enough money to be able to keep moving along with this program. We don't want to spend it before we get it. They've promised to do it. It's just whether it comes in this year or if it comes in next year. So that's what we were there about. And then the last item, it hasn't happened yet, but it will. And Mr. Middlestadt here with 214 Galleria is part of it. On October 14th, Dane County Executive Joe Parisi is going to be coming out to the village of Cambridge. And he is going to be meeting with a very small group of merchants, merchant and some folks that are doing altruistic activities. For example, he will be meeting with Mark's Garage. And Mark's Garage, as you know, has a contract with Rawhide. So he wants to swing by there. He also wants to meet with CART and the Cambridge Area Resources team. And then we have one business. Afterward, at 2 p.m., there will be a general meet and greet, open question answering, and that will be down at Dave Middlestad's facility.
The Galleria?
At the Galleria 214. So that's all scheduled for October 14th. And so if you've got questions, or if people out there in television land would like to swing by,
Columbus Day.
they can do so. Yes, we had to confirm that, so he will be here. So that's my report for this meeting. Library board?
I was not at the last library board meeting, so I unfortunately cannot report on what happened because the minutes have not yet been released.
All right. That's fine. Joint review board?
Did anyone show up?
Yeah, that's the one we have to do for the TIF. So Chris was the trustee member on that.
We had a joint review board. We just went over the preliminaries. It was kind of, we didn't really vote for anything.
No.
It was more information, receive only from the group, but.
It's a new state requirement. We have to do an annual report on the TIF to the Department of Revenue, and one of the new state requirements is this board meets to get a summary of the TIF. And Ellers
Status of
does
where
that
it's
for
at.
us, puts it together. The outlook is still good, favorable for the,
And is that
through
the
the end
TIF?
of the TIF.
Is that the TIF for the home again?
Mhm.
Yes,
The old Melster site, I should
Mhm.
say?
correct.
Mhm.
Good.
Mhm. Yep.
All right. Anything else on that?
Mhm.
Okay. Joint law enforcement. Ted chairs it, but you were on it, and you just had it, so.
Yeah. Sue was there too.
Ted doesn't say it.
I think what they went over was that they have been much busier this year with all the break-ins and all the robberies, et cetera. And of course, we then discussed, was it Captain?
Lieutenant
Lieutenant
Baylor was here.
was here, and we discussed the budget.
There was some nuances with the budget. We did vote that we would present to our respective boards what the budget numbers were. And that particular one for Village of Cambridge and Deerfield was $600,143.90. That there are some there's some moving targets there. Well, one of them is the fact that 3% pay raise has not been approved yet. Second question I had for them from our standpoint is for all the training and special duties such as SWAT or motorcycle duty, I just needed some clarification on that we are not going to be billed for that time. So the lieutenant was going to go back and look up the answers for that. And I also asked the question about Dane County indirect costs. I asked them for some examples of what those indirect costs were, and he did not have an answer, but he said that he would look it up and respond back accordingly. So that number may change.
And one caveat this year, because of when the 2 weeks fall and when they get paid, there is one extra payroll in 2020. So that increased the cost about $20,000.
$20,756
having that extra
and 25 cents.
payroll.
So overall, if the number as they presented it stands, what kind of increase is that from last year? What percentage?
For the
For-
village itself, it was 20,000. Was it a 20,000 increase? Oh, I have my packet over there.
Yeah, interest wise, yeah.
Went from 550 up to 600.
Mm.
So the village portion was about 20,000, with 20,000 going for each community and then the school district.
Sure, okay.
But taking into consideration those 2 weeks that are
I was
added,
gonna say, it sounds like it's
Yeah.
just the 2 weeks then,
That-
for that
that
one
added-
payroll week, which is.
it
what
would
the
have been,
increase is.
had those 2 weeks not been added, I calculated it would have been an increase of, it would have increased to $579,378.65.
Yeah, so
Which at that point is pretty much. the same.
divided by the three
Right.
entities.
Okay.
And also, the courts, they presented their budget as well to us, and their grand total for that was $20,010. And that is an increase from last year, which last year it was $16,948.30. There was some discussion about last year's, the clerk did not get across the board, nobody got a pay raise, so I think this is incorporating a 3% pay raise for the clerk. So, that's all I have to report. Sue, I
And
think.
one more thing that Kathy had brought up, that the police are in agreement that there should be a left turn and a right turn
Good.
on
And that will
Water
be on
Street.
the Public
Okay.
Works Committee agenda. when we
Great.
meet.
Appreciate that.
All right.
I just wanted to make mention, I don't know if you saw in the newspaper, they did apprehend 2 of the suspects that
Oh,
were
they did?
involved.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're suspects still, innocent,
Yeah.
still proven guilty,
Right.
but 2 of them were apprehended over
And
the
they
weekend.
can tie them to one or two break-ins, not all of them, but
Sure.
they can tie them to a
Wonderful.
couple.
Every little bit counts.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Susan and Chris. Moving on, village office updates.
Working with Badgerland on the trash and recycling contract. I have sent the draft over to Mary. She's given a few responses. So we'll be tweaking that final contract. Also working with them, talking about the implementation of changing over. They will be sending letters out to all residents saying you'd be getting 2 of the 95-gallon bins unless you request otherwise. So all requests will go directly to them. They will provide an email and a phone number to let them know what size bins you'd like. And then we'll work with Advanced on when they will be picking up the old. They would like to follow and deliver right after, so there's no lag. So working with them on that. Working on the sewer increase that had been approved. Melster testing was done. We don't have the final reports yet. Initial reports looked good, a number of holes, there was nothing in. There were some with construction debris, which we knew nothing was raising red flags right off the bat, but we're waiting on the final reports for that. Wells 2 and 3, the updates, working with DNR. There was a phone meeting last week, another one this week with the engineers, the company doing it, Dan. So working on getting the DNR permits we need to complete that work. There's a grant out for election security. When we moved over offices, there's a piece of equipment we need for our computer systems that Computer Magic gave us one to use right now, but we need to replace, so we'll be applying for the security grant through the elections, hopefully to cover that. Audit RFPs were sent out. They're due on the 18th. Been working with the attorney on the annexation stuff. We will have that on the next village board agenda. Quarterly state and federal reports we're working on. I was on vacation, so just a lot of catch up. Anything else you can?
Just working on the financials to get ready for budget items and working with those meetings and preparing for tax roll items at the same time and assessments and such to go on the tax roll. Just a lot of that work at this point.
So so are there any different types of budget reports that you're looking at providing to the board versus what we get?
I guess I haven't really looked at what you've gotten in the past at this point. I'm just concentrating on getting the numbers and things ready, and then I'll go and see what's there and what you've been provided in the past. Is there?
A lot of the budget comparisons.
Well,
Yeah, that's, it's
and-
mainly that. Is there something particular you're looking for or something different? Maybe I didn't understand your question.
Like, was the budget comparison in the packet this time?
No,
Not this time,
no.
Okay.
no.
So, just so that we, because I feel like I have no idea where we are budget-wise.
Right.
So,
Yeah, because you
it's
just got
hard.
one a couple months ago.
Right, so it's hard for us to, it's hard for me to feel like I'm doing my duty as a trustee and being wise about how we're spending our money and how we're sitting for the year, because I don't have that information, so it's hard for me to
We
guess
can
that.
put a budget comparison in the
Yeah, that
next
would be
packet. And
And if we could start getting that monthly, that would be great, like what we used to.
mhm.
Okay. And then, is there a way that we can get a reporting of sort of what's the current dollars in, sort of like a reconciliation of a checkbook on a monthly basis? So what's in all of the accounts and what money is earmarked for something on a monthly basis, so that we can see when money is taken out of a particular earmarked account, that money's been taken out, like capital.
Yeah.
The capital expenditures. I know 2 years ago, we were told there was 300 in it. The last audit said there's about 100 and some. I'm not quite sure where that capital money went.
And
So-
that's where we were holding off on
Yep.
that until the audit was presented, because we didn't have.
No, I get that, but
yeah.
now going forward,
Yes.
because you've got that audit,
Yeah.
so we should be
We-
able to say, you know, this
Yeah.
is what, the capital fund is down by this much because we spent it on this thing. And, you know, so that
Yeah.
we can keep track of those things and then try and stay on top of it, I think.
Mhm.
So those are the two types of reports that I think would be helpful to get.
And I'm not on audit and finance, but one of the things that I would like to see is have you look ahead a little bit and let us know, like, okay, what's coming ahead in the next year as
All
far
right.
as EMS and fire and how much we're expecting all of this to jump? If I,
EMS and fire is out of our control.
no, I know it is,
No,
but we still have to pay for it.
And our goal as a team,
Yeah,
now that we're getting caught up from
Right.
the previous, is next year to do a capital improvement plan.
okay,
So we can start looking forward.
yeah. Because
Is-
that, to me, that, for me anyway, it has to be in the back of my mind, how much these other things
Yeah.
are going to cost when we're voting on
Yeah.
other things. Like, we know that the fire is going up, or the police are going up 20,000, and I want to know how much projected for these other costs are. That obviously we can't do anything about, but
Yeah.
I need to have it in the back of my mind, how much more those things are going to
Yeah.
cost.
And fire meets
Tomorrow night.
tomorrow night, so they'll
Okay.
be working on the budget for,
Yeah.
Okay.
so we'll have numbers
So I
for
would,
next
I would like
year.
to see that just in
Mhm.
plain numbers for me, please.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears. Annexation, is this, do you anticipate this going into closed session?
No.
For next
No.
time that we meet?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay. Just curious
And
about
can I
that
ask
one.
why not?
That was the discussion we
all right.
had at the last meeting.
Okay.
Where we will be taking a look at their request and deciding if we're accepting it or not. And I will have a memo and a checklist from the
Determining our
attorney.
response, what the response to that is.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great. And that's going to be at the next meeting?
Mhm.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know, because we had kind of thrown this underneath the negotiations, so I don't know if we're, still
The
negotiating.
motion
or-
coming out was that we would hold a meeting in October to address their request,
All right,
if we were going to accept it or not.
okay.
And I just want to make sure everybody, if we needed a little bit of to go over it before we go into open, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Kathy. It's been a while.
Yeah.
2 months since we've really kind of dealt with that.
Like a refresher.
A refresher in closed. And then come out of closed and, anybody feel like that? Or we're all good?
I don't see that there's a problem with that.
Okay. Or is it, everybody else is okay? We're good?
I'm with you. It wouldn't hurt me to know exactly what we're looking at for the issues again. Like I said, it's been 2 months. So I'm all right if we went into closed to talk about it and then come back out, when we start talking with what we're going to do with it.
Okay.
So basically, in closed session, reviewing our conversations with
Right.
our legal counsel
Right.
and all of that.
Yep.
Right, okay. Yep, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Okay. All right, we can
Good.
go that route. Okay, moving on. Bills. We've got bills here in front of us of $79,493.06.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills and set them out.
Second.
Okay, discussion, I have one. It's a question. A1 Tree Service, and I know they did one tree down here in the park. Where were the other 2 trees that they took down?
It would be on
It's
the
in the bill
invoice
list.
and the,
Yeah, see, I was just looking off of this, and just,
It's got the check packet next to you.
yeah, okay, I was looking at.
offhand, I don't know for
Got the
sure.
packet materials. All right.
Which ones
Because there was
were-
three removals, and then 1 stump grind and 5 trim. So,
Yeah, the invoice is in there, so we wouldn't be able to know.
I think
All right.
behind the
Without looking
checks.
at it.
Yeah,
I think all the
behind the
invoices
checks.
are behind the
Okay.
checks there.
all right.
Um,
Okay. Any other questions? Any other? Okay. Well, it is money, and why don't we go through our roll call then, please?
Trustee Cunningham,
Yes.
Whitworth,
Yes.
Reinig,
Yes.
Hollenbeck,
Yes,
Kumbir, Christensen,
Yes,
McNeil.
Yes. All right. Looks like we're going to be paying for our bills. Okay. Trim 5 trees, drop 2 trees, and the side of the shed, drop the large ass. Took $1,000 for the big one in the park to cut that down. Okay.
Big tree.
Yeah.
yeah, big tree.
All right.
Like $1,000 for that tree is not a bad price, though.
Yeah.
Sure beats a liability suit.
Absolutely.
Moving on, new business, Chamber of Commerce update.
Karen has asked if she could come to the next meeting.
Okay.
So she's not here tonight.
All right. McFarland Senior Outreach, Matt Schunke.
Come on up. And I know we've talked about it a little bit. We have been receiving services through McFarland Senior Outreach. McFarland has requested a contract be drawn up. This is through funding through the county and state and so forth as well. And they do have a sample contract in the funding, which shows the services we've been receiving, what is expected in 2020, and I will let Matt take over from there.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I appreciate it. My name again is Matt Schenke. I'm Village Administrator for the Village of McFarland. I do appreciate being able to be here and talk to you. I've got a stepdaughter. She's in 8th grade at Nicolay, so I was just at the volleyball game in Deerfield, so that's why I was late. But I wish it was around the corner. It would have been easier to get here tonight. But in any event, it's good to be here. What brings me here, obviously, is our senior outreach services and the contract that's been proposed for the continued operations of McFarland and Cambridge to work together in that capacity. For a long time, for more than a decade, the village, McFarland, has been providing that service to Cambridge through its focal point. A focal point is a term that's established by Dane County, and that involves a collection of different communities. That includes the town of Christiana, the village of Rockdale, town of Pleasant Springs, and the town of Dunn, as well as the village of McFarland. There are several focal points in the county that provide a similar array of services to different municipalities in a similar setup that we have here. I can speak to some of the services that provide, but Lori Anderson is our director of that service. She's far more experienced and knowledgeable in those activities than I am. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here. She usually speaks to this group in the fall. If you'd like her to come back, we can certainly schedule an opportunity for her to talk to you more extensively on the services that are provided. But on a very general level, they rotate around case management, nutrition, the meal site that's provided here, as well as in McFarland we do what's called specialized service. And through those services, we make contact, we provide oversight, ride coordination, and other things to assist seniors in their everyday life. In doing so, we've been doing that, again, in Cambridge as well as these other communities for quite some time. The history behind how that funding has been established is essentially Dane County does provide some assistance for both case management and nutrition services. Those funds have altered or been revised over the years. They change, mostly go down, they go up. It's really at their discretion as to what they provide. They also try to hit certain metrics in different places, like how many meals are provided, how many case management calls that you do, different things of that nature. So there are some metrics behind it as well. But what we've come to understand and come to talk about within the focal point over the last several months is, and actually going back about a year and a half with Cambridge, is the idea that we've set up funding beyond what the county provides through donations that are established by the other communities in the focal point. And those donations are meant to offset the service that's provided. And no doubt we appreciate that. That's certainly a welcome gesture on behalf of those communities. But the problem, as we've tried to talk and demonstrate, is that there's a growing disparity between the actual service provided and that cost compared to the donation. And in doing so, what was born out of that discussion is this effort to formalize these arrangements that we have within the focal point between McFarland and other communities so that we can be more consistent and equitable with the services that are provided. The main concern for the village board that I report to and the committee that oversees senior outreach is we want to make sure that the taxes that we levy for the service are aligned with benefit those that are paying it, essentially residents within McFarland. And that's the last portion that fills in the revenue to offset the expenses, the county, the donations, and then the tax levy from that standpoint that the village provides. And that's the disparity, again, the gap between what the actual cost has been and what the donations provided is what we're trying to account for and we're trying to address. So this effort is, again, a way to try to formalize that, provide some equity, and again, be consistent from year to year so we have a better funding mechanism going forward. The agreement itself, I'll just summarize some of the key points that are related to the funding formula. Essentially it starts out with we would provide a notice to the village that would state generally what our budget is planned for the next year and what Cambridge's share would be. You could also see what the other communities are paying in that respect. And how that's based on, and that funding formula is based on two key factors. The first is we created a 5-year average for what our case management calls for service are. Essentially, they refer to them as units, but they're equate to hours in case management speak. And the hours of case management on a 5-year basis are what help create the cost distribution amongst the different municipalities. That helps to provide some balance between the swings and the ebb and flow of case management. Case management is a really undefined service. We could have no calls for service, or we could have a lot of calls for service. Some clients that call might need a lot of assistance. Some may need a little. It's really an undetermined, unscheduled activity. And one of what we're required to respond based on our agreement with Dane County. And in doing so, the hours are included in that funding formula over a 5-year period to provide some parity, again, from year to year and protect against swings. The second item is the nutrition and the meal site, essentially how those costs are broken down. That is a scheduled activity. We know when that is. McFarland has a meal site. Cambridge has a meal site. We know when and how long those hours are and what those costs are, again, to provide for those services. Those are presented as essentially actuals based on what the actual cost might be, because their variation from year to year is quite minimal. A few of the other finer points, just there'd be 2 payments per year. And the final item is something that I took from our agreements that we have with fire and EMS for our towns that we provide service to. We operate on a contracted basis with the towns. Essentially, they contract that service from the village. It's a village department for fire and rescue, including EMS services. And within that agreement, annually, we go through a process to reconcile what we actually spent compared to what they paid. And in cases of fire and EMS, we typically do return money because it's demonstrated that we didn't need as much. And sometimes that's based on didn't pay as much overtime. We had a vacancy because an EMT left. There were other things that just didn't quite come in as much. So that same could be true. Obviously, fire and EMS has a greater expense, per capita. But the idea being that we would reconcile the numbers at year end to make sure we are only asking and you are only providing for what's needed to support the services within your community, the same as we ask of ourselves. From that standpoint, I think that's all the main points that I wanted to go over. But the key objective, what we're trying to do is, again, we're trying to formalize something that's been informal for a long time. We want to work with our focal point communities so we can keep it together. That's the objective, in a sense that we're mandated by Dane County, if we accept their funds to provide for these services, that we will provide service within the focal point anywhere, any of those towns and villages that I mentioned. But in doing so, we want to be able to keep that together. But if the divide continues to grow, it creates an undue burden on the tax levy for McFarland residents, and that's what my board is concerned about and asked me to try to work on with the focal point communities. So far, I've met with every community now several times, so I appreciate everyone's attentiveness to that and wanting to learn more and talk about this, because that's usually what's necessary to try to solve problems like that. So again, I think I hit on just about everything. I'm certainly available for any questions or further discussion that you need assistance on.
So revenues, are the senior meals free, or do the seniors pay a fee?
The seniors do pay a fee.
Where does that revenue
and
show in this report?
The seniors pay a fee, but it's a suggested donation. And that money is returned by contract to Dane County. That is not funds that goes to actually directly offset the expenses that we might have. So that's not a revenue that's shown, because that is a pass-through from between the individual paying, it goes to the village, and we send it to the county.
So my biggest concern is this is a huge jump for the Village of Cambridge, and I don't know how we are going to be able to fund that this year. It's unfortunate that, we don't have enough time to make any other different changes or to do any other solutions besides go with McFarland. So that concerns me greatly, because we don't have choices. And this is a $20,000 increase versus what we've done in the past, which, again, our budget is so tight, I don't know where that money's coming from. So I don't know what recourse we have. For the contract, has Mary reviewed the contract?
No, we're not at that point yet.
Okay, because the 180 days prior notice, I think that's a lot. That means we would have to tell you in June?
It's 6 months is meant to provide some time, yeah. That's what the county requires of us, that's all. That's where that got carried over.
Explain that to me.
So Dane County, we have a contract with Dane County to provide case management and nutrition services
For Cambridge?
within our focal point, which
Okay,
includes.
how does the county determine what your focal point is?
They've set the boundaries. Sometimes they follow the school district boundaries, and other times they were set up that way a long time ago. Last year, we went through a process where they redrew those boundaries. We didn't really have any input in that. We lost parts of Rutland. Rutland, as you can picture, kind of falls between Stoughton and Oregon, and we were kind of sticking down into that. That just got divided up between Stoughton and Oregon. They took that away from us. But in return, added Dunn. We didn't have a say in that. That's just what they decided. Some of that stuff is mandated to us by them in order to maintain that. Within the contract that we accept from them, within their terms, there's a 180-day notice that they need to give to us before they cancel the contract, likewise that we need to give to them if we were to not follow through on that as well. Trying to be consistent between the two contracts is all that term is meant to be.
So, go ahead.
I have a question about the, just the math here. I'm looking at this. So Dane County, help me understand this here. Dane County's funding is $47,000 for 2020, correct? For case management?
That's what we were projecting thus far.
So why isn't that subtracted from your total? As well as the 15,000 that's
So-
projected for the nutrition?
Yep, on the second page is where that's taken into account. If you look at, on the second page of the funding formula where it says at the top, you can see what each of the member communities pay on a distribution basis. That distribution is based on that 146,216 number minus the county's contribution taken off the top. So the total for our contribution is net of what the county provides. If they were to provide more, our expected cost distribution goes down. If they provide less, the vice versa happens in that capacity. Same thing would apply then on the bottom end. The county funding comes off the top in both cases.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any idea why there was such a large jump in the total units of service between 2017 and 2018?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Between the years of 2017 and 2018, the units of service, so the hours, jumped quite significantly.
Yes.
You know,
A few different specific cases. Some of that is protected information because it's
Yeah.
kind of HIPAA stuff. But what happens in those cases, we encounter some people who need a lot of assistance. So there were a few different cases that took on more hours than we would consider the average. It seems like obviously, yeah, for a while you were clipping along at about 70-ish hours a year. And then unfortunately, or fortunately, because they do help, get people assistance, that kind of kicked up a little bit in that case. I would say in 2019, it would be probably more consistent with what the hours have been in 2018, just because of some of the case volume that I know they've encountered.
So if we chose not to contract with you, what are our options? And would we be able to get the dollars from Dane County for our area directly?
I don't know the answer to that. I would say that the county would have to answer the question as to whether or not you have the resources capable to provide for those services. The case managers are, I might be saying this wrong, but the case managers are social workers and are licensed, I believe, to provide that service in Cambridge. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Because we've
Yeah.
both been kind of around this for
Yeah,
years.
so there are 2 case managers based out of McFarland that are social workers so for the case management aspect, there are some people can be referred to the county and so forth, but it's not the hands-on. The meal site, obviously, we don't have the capacity to do a meal site on our own.
Yeah, I think that's part of the history.
We potentially could if we chose to go a different route, right? We aren't tied to this forever. We have other
No.
choices.
Deerfield they're in the Sun Prairie focal point. They do not do their lunches through their community center, fully funds their meal program. So there are options, but,
Right.
um,
I'm not asking for
No.
what those, I just want to know
No.
we have options and that
Yeah.
there are other things that we could
Yeah.
do, that we aren't absolutely tied into doing this.
Yeah, there's nothing that ties any of us to work with Dane County. It just, we have to fund it completely on our own then. And that's the allure of wanting to work with them, because there does provide some funding. Obviously, it's not enough. I mean, it's a third of what the total operating costs are, and it's been dwindling. Verona has left Dane County and provides this exclusively on their own. They don't ask for the county's assistance, so you're correct. You don't have to follow the county's model, but it would likely disrupt the focal point, and then you would be left to your own devices as to how you wish to provide the service, if at all.
Provide a small subsidy.
Matt, just to confirm here, we're currently spending $6,500 a year, correct?
that's what our donation is.
All right, 6,500 is going in. And what you're seeing with this report is that it really should be for it should be $20,208.
No.
26,000.
Plus this,
20,
yeah.
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 $26,208.
Correct.
What does it have to be for us to stay in the program with McFarland and that focal group for 2020?
Based on how this funding formula is presented, that 26,208.
So if we can't come up with those dollars, then what happens?
I will have to report back to the village board that we have a member within the focal point that cannot meet the funding requirement. And it'd be up to them to decide essentially what to do at that point if they want to continue that service. Some of that obviously is outside of my control. I would certainly try to work with them to the extent I could to try to find other alternatives to continue to operate. Certainly Mark has had that discussion with his counterpart in McFarland, and we could continue that. But that's who I report to in a sense, and what I would have to do to try to work something out.
Well, as Trustee Hollenbeck said here, we're getting this information, and there's not a lot we can do with it. It's sort of like whatever the price is, that's the price, and if we want to stay in the program, that's what
Deja
we've
vu
got to
from
come up.
EMT.
No kidding. And the fire department.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that.
It just absolutely drives me crazy how we have absolutely no say in when we are contracting with other parties that are providing services there's like no negotiation at all.
And we know that you're the messenger, so.
I appreciate that. No, it's
Yeah.
a tough spot to be in. I recognize that.
Okay.
We aren't looking for an answer on this tonight, are we?
No,
Information.
no.
Okay.
We wanted
I
to
wouldn't be able
present-
to come to your next meeting. That's why I wanted to
Yeah.
make myself available.
Lori could come to the next, but we wanted the full board to have this information before audit and finance meets so that there's a better understanding of what the situation is and what the cost is to McFarland, what our citizens are receiving and so forth.
Didn't we years ago contract out the senior meals to a local restaurant?
No.
Or we thought about
Meals
it?
on Wheels
Okay,
is a separate
okay.
thing. We did a couple years back that
There,
our numbers were dipping and the county was talking about,
food.
so we were looking at different options.
Okay,
With the county funding, you have to meet certain nutritional guidelines
Right.
and so forth. So that came into play. But we were looking at different options who could provide the meal.
I remember that part of it,
But
but-
still through the focal group, not
Not on our own.
And the food comes through the county's food service contract. And so it has the checklist of all the nutritional and so forth.
At
that-
a cost of what per meal?
It's not very much. I don't know the answer to that.
What is the
It's a handful of dollars.
suggested,
I think it's
$8.
$3 or $4.
$11,641.
but what's your suggested
Is it
donation?
For
Yeah.
2020.
It's up there,
The
it's out there, I know,
suggested
I've looked at it
donation
a
is like
thousand times.
$6 a meal.
Yeah.
It's
$4.50.
Just the meal.
$8 or $10
That is
to,
that's
for the
people
cost.
who are
Yeah.
administering
Like
the meals.
$10 for the
Yeah.
cost, okay.
That's what we're
But that
paying
all
the
goes back.
$11,000 for.
so the money
No.
goes back to the county to
Right.
get funneled back into
meal
this
is what-
program.
Right.
It's just not a
I'm
direct.
just thinking if we
All right.
contract
For-
with
that's
the
paying for the
Revenue.
food.
you know how much we
One
pay.
conversation here, okay. Did you have questions here, ladies?
I was just clarifying what the 11,641 is for. The 11,641 isn't really for the food per se, that's for the personnel to provide us the food? The hours? When you say units, annual units, I just
The annu-
extrapolated that based on what you said about units for the
Correct.
case.
The annual units to figure out the cost differential is how much wage, how many hours we commit to each service, or for the nutrition service. But then that's applied to what the costs are for the meal program after you take out what the county provides.
Okay. Again, I know this is going to be a tough issue coming at us from the audit and finance, and, you know, we appreciate you coming by tonight, Matt. I will also let you know that I think that what we will be doing, however we get through this year and into 2020, we're going to have to really take a long, hard look at what we offer to our seniors, and through the outreach program and through the meal program. And I'd like to see a special subcommittee formed with some individuals here off the Board of Trustees, but also individuals from the community, because there's a lot that can be done.
And
And,
just a couple things that aren't highlighted in the services provided here. Through the outreach, there's also a contract. We have a foot clinic once a month. There are rides to the mall once a month. Once a month, there's also rides for seniors to doctor's appointments, shopping, and so forth locally. Also rides to the meal program. So those are all things that are connected but aren't specified here.
Okay.
Is
Looking
there
at
any
that.
way you can break that down for us as far as how many people you know take the rides, take the bus, need rides here, things like that?
We could get the numbers from the county or from McFarland if they have them. The only thing
can certainly
we
ask.
take here are the people who use the bus to go into the mall once a month. They're the only ones that contact us directly. The rest they contact.
And that's normally on average,
That's 2 to 4 people a month.
okay.
But the rest, they contact McFarland
Okay.
directly for the services, not us.
Okay.
Okay. Matt, thank you very much
Yep.
for coming by
Thank
this
you for having
evening. Please pass on our regards to Village of McFarland.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Moving on, extraterritorial certified survey map. Lisa, what can you tell us about this? 'Cause I think I
This
know
is extraterritorial. It is the old
Giovanni's.
Giovanni's. So the zoning, which surprised me, is currently residential. There is no residence. I don't know if there used to be an apartment in the building.
Yes.
or-
Yes, there was.
Yeah, so with the building gone, they are looking to rezone it. They want to just put up a shed at this point. Think to continue the U-Haul business out of there. So it's an extraterritorial for that.
Okay, make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, discussion? All right,
So, I'm sorry, they're rezoning it from
From
residential
residential, to whatever the county business, or you can give me what the current is, or what they're switching it to. Oh, business zoning.
Business? Okay, great,
yeah.
thank you.
Is it-
Okay,
All right.
that's my only question.
The
Chris?
newspaper article stated that they were going to rebuild.
But probably not with the apartment or,
Yeah.
but right now it's to put the shed up and they need the business zoning to be able to put
They
the
were
shed
having
up.
problems with the setbacks from the road. They'd have to be way down in the hill.
Hmm.
They couldn't rebuild down there.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the map pertaining here to Giovanni Holdings. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Dane County Library Resolution, Village of Cambridge.
I saw the numbers.
These are both ones that we do every year. If we don't do these, then the county taxes for the library services. If we don't pass this, they still do it, and then our citizens are double taxed. So this is just our annual, saying what our
Same thing we
minimum
do every year.
appropriations for next year will be, so that we're not then taxed by the county.
All right, I'll make a
for
motion
services.
to approve Resolution 2019-09, requesting exemption from the Dane County Library tax.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Can I go to the next one then?
Yes, you may.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-10, requesting exemption from the Jefferson County Library tax.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor of passage of that resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, moving on. Unfinished business. Looks like we are okay on that. Nothing has to be taken up. Park ride and grant, park and ride grant.
Sorry, I do have unfinished business. What is the status of the tree out here? And
In November,
okay.
yes, to have that pushed off to November.
All right, excuse me.
Okay, that's all right. I thought this was Dane County. Yeah, that's right. Okay, Dane County Park and Ride Grant. This is in your packet, and I want to hold off on this.
Well, it is just correspondence.
Okay,
So we received this from the county saying we do have to act on the grant that they provided us, accept it or decline it. And like Mark said, Bob Saloff and Steve Strauss have been invited to come in to the
Okay.
next meeting.
okay, all right.
So it will be addressed at the next meeting because they want something signed back to them by early November, so the next meeting is really our option.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know I did attend one of the bike meetings was held here, and Bob asked me to come down there, and they'll present options, but for them applying for grants to help cover the matching funds, they need the village to sign on to, it's kind of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other. We want them to get the money to do the match, but they need our stamp of support to apply for those grants to get that matching money. So that's what they'll be coming in to
Okay.
talk about next meeting and some of the grants out there that are available.
All right. The other item here is the Dane County Sheriff's press release regarding home invasions. Sue, isn't this what we were talking about earlier?
Yep, at the police meeting.
All right.
They had asked that we spread the word on this, share it, again, stress the importance of locking vehicles in homes. So we did put it on our website, on some Facebook pages, sent to the paper. but stressing, lock your cars.
I'm still flabbergasted
And
that people do
it
not
is.
lock their cars or houses. That just blows my mind.
You didn't grow up in a small town.
I grew up in a small town, but I've moved to a big city for a period of time. So even at that, yeah, it's
I
crazy.
know, I've even taken out where a remote for the garage door, and it's like, no.
Got to go in the house.
Yeah, because I think you can walk by and you could see, there it is, it's up on the visor. And it's like, okay, let's crunch this. But if the car's in the driveway, it's kind of like, well, maybe there's somebody home. So,
They're
Yeah.
not finding that happening so much unless the car is unlocked. If the car is unlocked and the garage door is there,
The garage door
The-
opener's there, then
the
they'll
police
open the
just
garage.
said somebody walked into a garage. That was unlocked. There was a gun case in it. That was unlocked with 5 guns in it. 5 guns went. But it was all unlocked. And
Bob used to leave his old truck in the driveway unlocked with keys in it. Nobody ever took it. Darn it.
all righty. Moving on, we've got some upcoming meetings. October 14th is Plan Commission. October 15th, Water and Sewer. Let's see. Water and Sewer. October 17th, Personnel and Public Works. October 22nd, Village Board. And Economic Development Committee and Audit and Finance Committee to be determined.
we are looking that weekend, the next week in October for the audit and finance. And they have sent out to members of the Economic Development Committee what days were. A lot of people are gone in October, so we're piecing together when people will be, so I'll be sending out a couple dates to see if people are available.
And then will you guys be establishing a standard?
We'll talk at that
Okay.
meeting and see what works best for people. Mhm.
Library board?
Oh,
October
Library
16th?
Board is switched this month to the 16th.
The third Wednesday instead of the second.
And I was thinking it had passed when I first put this together, but then Joan said it had been moved this month, so.
Okay. Anything as far as questions, referrals to staff, or future agenda items? Okay.